Hey, welcome everyone. Well, you can't see me because I have some technical issues, but you can all see the screen. So go ahead and communicate with me through the chat as we go. I don't think we're going to get to a clearing today because I have so much to cover. This topic today is really educational. It's going to be to help you guys understand all 6 aroma freedom techniques, where they come from, the basic gist of them, why we use them, and when we would use certain techniques at certain times, because that's, I think, what's most unclear to most people. We've had our original aroma freedom technique for many years now, which works wonderfully. Why do we need these other techniques? So I'm going to get into all that, help you just expand your understanding of the whole aroma freedom process. We're going to just do a touch of neuroscience, not a lot of it, but just enough so you can really, again, deepen your appreciation and understanding for what it is we're doing here, why it works, and it helps you when you are working with clients to just be that much more effective if you really understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. So without further ado, let's get going. I'm assuming all of you have some familiarity with aroma freedom. If you've never experienced it at all, that's okay. You're going to learn a lot about it. You might not experience it today, but there'll be plenty of opportunities to experience it, but you're going to get an idea of how powerful it can be. So first, we want to talk about the types of freedom that we seek. Then we'll talk about how we're going to use aroma freedom to reach those types of freedom. Freedom of expression. This is obviously under assault in many areas of the world right now. But even apart from what's happening politically, on an emotional internal level, can I say what I think, feel, and believe? Or do I have something within me that's stopping me from doing that? Am I censoring my own thoughts? Am I feeling like I can't be who I am and express who I am and what I think? A lot of people, really everyone to some degree, has that. We have that self-censoring that we do because we want to be accepted, because we want people to like us, because we think that we're going to get along better in life, that sort of thing. So, but that weighs on us as this blockage. So we want to be able to clear that out. Freedom from negative moods. Can I choose how I want to feel in a particular situation? If you're in a bad mood, you know what that does. When you're in a bad mood, it colors the whole day. It can ruin the whole day. That otherwise, the sun might be shining, there might be nice things happening. If you're in a sour mood, you can't really enjoy it. So if you're in a bad mood, what can you do about it? Well, we have things we can do with aroma freedom. So that's what we'll get into. Freedom from negative behaviors or habits. Can I act in a way that brings me closer to my desired goals, dreams, and ideals? So do you do things that you wish you didn't do? A lot of this comes up, of course, in relationship to food. People say, well, here's the food and exercise that I aspire to be doing, but then here's what I'm actually doing. Or in business, here's the business habits that I wish I had. I wish I was more organized. I wish I was more consistent with follow through and that sort of thing, but maybe my negative habits don't allow that. So do we have a way of going in and actually addressing those habits to make changes? Freedom from being triggered by current stressors. Can I respond appropriately to what's happening in my life? Versus, am I being triggered all the time? Am I flying off the handle for no reason? Am I overly reactive? And when someone does or says something minor, it really affects me deeply, whether I'm getting angry and shouting about it, or whether I'm going off in a corner and crying. Have any of you ever experienced that, where you just feel like, why am I so emotional? Like, why am I just overreacting, over-responding? Well, there may be a reason for that we can help with. Freedom from painful memories. Can I think of events from the past without becoming upset or triggered? Of course, this is the case in PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, when we've suffered a serious trauma and relive it, replay it in our minds, and nightmares, flashbacks, that sort of thing. It can also be just even relatively what you might consider minor things, a breakup with a boyfriend in high school, but when you rethink about it, there's some emotion there. Well, can we clear things like that out? freedom to choose my own path. Can I chart a destination and work effectively towards it? And this is, in a sense, one of my main definitions of happiness is to be climbing the hill that's yours to climb and feeling strong enough for the journey, to chart a path. And it's not realistic to think that you're instantly going to be happy all the time, every day. That's not real life. But can I be striving and working towards and feeling like I'm moving in the right direction? That's happiness. Or do you feel blocked? Freedom from paralysis, procrastination, distraction. Can I take action on my ideas? I have ideas of what I want to do, but I'm paralyzed. How many of you have experienced that? I know we have tax season in the US anyway is coming up, and people are notoriously procrastinate. It's something that they know they need to do, and they're not going to get out of it, but hold off till the very last minute, versus can you do the things that you need to do and feel excited to do it? And just to say it another way, freedom is set and reach goals. Can I dream of the life I desire and make those dreams come true? So this is the kind of freedom that we're talking about, this inner freedom, this emotional freedom to move in the direction of our dreams and to take action. That's what we're shooting for with Aroma Freedom. So that's what freedom is. Well, what is aroma freedom? So today I'm defining it as the inhalation of specific scents at the opportune moment in order to bring about lasting change in how a person thinks, feels, and believes. So let's break that down a little bit. So first of all, what are the specific scents? And we'll talk about that. Of course, we're using specific essential oils, which we'll get into. There are lots of scents that can shift our emotional state. We've narrowed it down to a few select ones that we know work really, really well. So those are the ones we're going to talk about. When is the opportune moment? As you all know, you all use oils. You like to smell oils all day, every day. So in one sense, doesn't it seem like, well, if I just smell enough oils, isn't that going to make me free? Well, yes and no. Because what I've discovered is a process for getting yourself into the right mental and emotional state, meaning you have a memory or an image that's activated with the feeling and the bodily sensation and the thought, and all of that is pulled up. And then when you smell the oil, that's the opportune state. And we understand from neuroscience now why that's the state, why you have to be in a certain window in order to have this trigger. And finally, what do we mean by lasting change? Well, by lasting change, I'm contrasting this with the type of change that you smell the oil and it feels good for as long as you're smelling it, or you feel good for a little while, but it doesn't actually change the deep pattern or the deep habit or the traumatic memory. When we're talking about lasting change, we're talking about literally changing the wiring of your brain so that the memory itself changes. Sometimes the memory disappears altogether. In other cases, the memories will change to such a degree that even though they may still visually look similar, they feel so different that you really can't even call it the same memory. And this type of lasting change, when you achieve that, is effortless. This is one of the definitions of true memory reconsolidation, is the change is lasting and effortless. So as you know, the essential oils that we use, why do we use essential oils? Well, they're distilled from plants and they're complex and balancing, as opposed to medications, which are very simple and unbalancing. They're very safe, a gift from nature, and really in nature, essential oils are created by plants to use as signaling molecules. They might signal to animals to, hey, come pollinate me, or stay away from me, or I'm going to taste good to you, or I'm going to be poisonous to you, or scents are used, of course, in animals as well for, this is a scent of fear, this is a scent of sexual attraction, and so on. So we take advantage of all that. And we use the Young Living oils. It's the only company I've ever worked with. And we continue with them because the purity, we can guarantee seed to seal quality. And the blends that Gary created are truly inspired. And I'm not an aromatherapist, so I don't know how he did it. I don't know, I've studied a little bit of the chemistry, but when Gary put these blends together, he was doing from such a high level of both a technical understanding of the compounds as well as a spiritual understanding of how they affect us, that I just kind of stand on his shoulders and I take the things he's done and just apply them in some specific ways. And we know that we're going to get consistent results by using the Young Living oils because the quality is there, the testing each batch. So that's why we stick with them. Okay, so back in 2016 is when I wrote the original Aroma Freedom Technique book, which was, of course, at that time, a culmination of a lifetime of integrating different psychological and holistic modalities. And I put things together in this 12-step process that we know as AFT. Now, just so you know, when I say AFT, I'm referring to this original 12-step process. When I say Aroma Freedom, I'm referring to this whole family of techniques that we now have. That's why we use Aroma Freedom when referring to, broadly speaking, to this whole approach. But the reason I wrote this in a 12-step process is because I wanted it to be duplicatable. I wanted it to be something that others could turn around and do as well. And I was thrilled to discover that it worked. Not just that the technique worked, but that people could read the book and do the technique and it would work without me being right there. It showed that I had captured the essence of what we were doing in the steps, and it was teachable to others. And briefly speaking, as most of you know, it basically consists of setting goals. And then once you set that goal, you're finding the negative thoughts, feelings, body, memory complex. And then you smell the essential oils to dissolve that memory complex. And you keep going round after round until there's no more negative voice. That takes maybe 3, 4, 5 rounds of doing this. It might just take 20, 30, 40 minutes. And once there's no more negative voice, then you create an affirmation that expresses this new positive mindset that you have going towards the goal. And once you've done all that, it is important to identify positive actions you can take. So for instance, as I tell people many times, you can do a clearing on a goal of I am a Royal Crown Diamond in Young Living, and you can dissolve any doubt you have that you could be there. But if that's all you do, you're not going to be a Royal Crown Diamond. You have to actually do the action steps. So sometimes people forget that. So I'm just reminding you. So that's the original 12-step process. So when would we use this process? Well, signs you might need Aroma Freedom. Number one, you want to accomplish something, but you're not sure if it can happen. This is the main thing. So you have a goal, whether it's a business goal, whether it's a personal goal, like I have a harmonious relationship with my husband, or I go for a walk 5 days a week, whatever it is, but you're not sure that it can happen. So that means there are things within you that are blocking. You don't know what they are, but that's why we use Aroma Freedom. Or maybe you don't know what you want. If you don't know what you want, then we take some time to really work together, and I train my practitioners in the training program as well to do this, to really take as long as we need to identify what would be a really valuable goal to work towards. You just start there. Maybe you feel stuck. You just feel like, well, I kind of know what I want. I just can't seem to get moving. Or you don't have you don't have any idea how to reach your goals. You have some goals, but you don't know what to do to get there. You feel like something's holding you back, but you don't know what it is. And people will say to me sometimes, well, what I want isn't possible. Well, how do they know it's not possible? Well, it's because they have these inner voices that are telling them it's not possible. So, but when I hear that, we'd go through the Aroma Freedom process and we use those negative voices and we follow them back to the feelings and the bodily sensations and follow them back to those earlier events in life, whether it was from childhood or some other time in adulthood when something happened. And that thing that happened made such an impact on you that you created a negative thought saying, well, I guess that can't happen or anything like it. And that's why you have these negative thoughts. So we go into, in quite a bit of detail in other trainings, what is the origin of these negative thoughts? Some of the results that we saw within the first year after writing the book. I was teaching a certification course that people wanted, and I had my certification students logging all of their sessions into a database. And they were doing that at that time just so I could check their homework. I didn't realize that Google Forms was actually creating this beautiful database for me. And after a year, I looked at it, and I was amazed to see what it showed. I'll just explain this chart on the top. It shows in Aroma Freedom, we're rating from 0 to 10 how possible it feels that you could reach your goal. 0 is totally hopeless, 10 is totally possible. So out of over 3,000 responses, at the beginning of a session, people were in the 3, 4, maybe 5 range primarily. 3 was the highest though. So they were pretty hopeless that it could happen. After just one round, maybe it takes 5 or 10 minutes. Now all of a sudden they're at a 5 or 6. After 2 rounds, they're up at 7, 8, 9. And after 3 rounds, the majority of people are 8, 9, or 10. This is just after a few minutes, well, about maybe say 30, 35 minutes of doing Aroma Freedom. People are going from feeling pretty much hopeless about reaching their goal to knowing it can happen, which means that we've removed the internal obstacles. Look at this data another way. Here's how we started. After 1 round, after 2 rounds, and after 3 rounds. So when I saw this data, I knew that it worked, but it was really a confirmation, not just that the process works, but that it works reliably session after session after session, which means that we're tapping into something core about human nature. Also, we learned that it works just as well in New York as it does in Singapore, as it does in Hong Kong, as it does in the Netherlands. It's human nature that we're tapping into here. I'll just give you a few testimonials. As I was putting these slides together, I came across a folder that I created in my computer a couple of years ago, and actually I'd forgotten was there. But these were some gems that some people had written on the Facebook group for Aroma Freedom. So for instance, and these are the kinds of freedoms that we were talking about. So Anne talked about public speaking. She said, I can now do Facebook Lives and online webinars. And before I was completely uncomfortable and tongue-tied. Thank you. Kayla says, I pulled my hair as a calming thing with my anxiety. After a while, it became a habit. After AFT, I don't pull my hair. I don't tend to get as worked up or overwhelmed in difficult situations either. I have also been a nail biter my whole life. 1 AFT session and I have long nails. I even made it through Super Bowl with my nails, being a Chiefs fan. I know the Chiefs won the Super Bowl one year and they lost it the next year. I think this might have been the year that they lost it. I'm not sure, but so that for her was a good example of once you shift a habit, if you really pull it out by the root, it's effortless. She was able to go through. It's not like she was watching the Super Bowl and was fighting against pulling her nail or against chewing her nails. It wasn't there anymore. The habit was gone. So that's a good example of how that change can be transformative. Christine wrote about self-love. She said, self-love, I am beautiful, I am strong, I am worthy. Thank you for helping make my life more beautiful. I know she had to clear some traumas from long ago, and this was the result for her. Amanda said, I used to feel crushed and paralyzed by some certain circumstances. Now I'm able to move forward. AFT has also allowed me to put healthy boundaries in place. It has truly been life-changing for me. So going from feeling crushed and paralyzed to free, that's the type of freedom we're talking about. So let me review a little bit about the journey that I took to go from the original 12-step process to all 6 techniques. And again, there's just a little bit of neuroscience in here. If your eyes glaze over, don't worry. We'll get back to the more practical stuff in just a minute. But one of the things that occurred about a year after having written the book was someone connected me with a chiropractor who told me what I was actually doing. I had an intuitive sense of why it worked, and there were ways I could explain it based on, feelings and memories, and how you can't feel 2 things at the same time, and feelings are the glue that hold the memories together. These are things I kind of knew intuitively, but I didn't have any true understanding of why that was. So he said, you're doing memory reconsolidation. So there's a great book, by the way, if you want to read about it, called Unlocking the Emotional Brain. eliminating symptoms at their roots using memory reconsolidation. So first insight was that that's what we were actually doing. So that put me on the map. Memory consolidation is the brain's own process for rewriting memories. So when we remember something, let's say we lived in a certain hometown in our childhood and then we moved away, and we remember the ice cream store is a mile down the road on the left, and that's the memory that we always have of that. And then let's say you're 50 years old, you go back to your hometown and you only thought it was a mile down the road because you were little then. You realize it's actually 3 blocks down the road. So what has to happen? Well, your brain has to be able to rewrite the memory. It would be a real problem if you couldn't rewrite your memories. So you rewrite the memory and you realize, oh, that was actually just, I had very small legs, that's why it seemed so long, but here's where the ice cream store really is. So we do this all the time. But what they discovered was we can only do that under specific circumstances. We have to trigger the old memory with some emotion so that when we do that, the neurons become what's called labile, and the synapses of the neurons disconnect so that they're ready to be rewritten. And there's a 5-hour window that opens up, and they've studied this in mice and crabs and all kinds of animals and even shellfish. They've discovered this. It's a basic brain process that the neurons decouple. There's a 5-hour window. If you show some new information, they will recouple in a new way. And so we realized that's what we were doing. And Dr. Ecker understood that all transformational therapies share this process, but arrive at it in different ways. If you go through some type of therapy and you truly shift your memory, or you truly shift, let's say, nail biting, and you truly pull it out by the root so you no longer have any urge at all, it means that you have on some level reconsolidated some memories, whether it was using oils or not. As I said, it requires it to be activated in a full-bodied visceral way, and then you introduce some new information which helps the brain to realize, oh, that memory, let's take another example, let's say a car accident, and after a car accident, you're very nervous about getting on the road again. So your body is remembering and reliving the trauma and pain of having been in that car accident. And in order to shift that, you have to have enough experience of being in a car without getting into an accident. And over time, your brain will rewrite it, and that memory will cease to have the same emotional charge because there's new information coming in that says you're safe. What we use with Aroma Freedom, the new information, is the essential oil. And this is what's the amazing thing. Every time we smell an essential oil, remember I said that essential oils are signaling molecules. What do they do? Well, they're signaling to our nervous system that we're safe. If it's a calming essential oil, there are many essential oils. Other essential oils may signal that it's time to generate more energy, or it may signal that it's time to produce more of a certain hormone, or it's time to activate the immune system. There's all kinds of things the essential oils can signal to us, but the ones we're using for this process are signaling to us that basically that we're safe in different ways. It's doing that. So by opening up the memory, having it in a full-bodied way, breathing the oil in, we're getting that new message that of safety. The second insight was that our brain works mostly through prediction. This is not something that I had learned when I was in graduate school 30 years ago. They weren't talking about this, but in the last 5-10 years especially, neuroscience has been talking about prediction and how so much of what the brain does and the brain's purpose really is to predict experience so that we can better survive in the world. So the brain is constantly predicting experience, everything from predicting that the sun is going to rise today. We don't even, excuse me, we don't even realize that we're doing this. But if the sun didn't rise one day, you would freak out because we expect it to. Or if you drop a plate and it doesn't fall to the ground but rises up to the air, you would freak out because we're walking around with all these predictions of how things are going to be, both in the physical world, but also in our emotional lives. We predict that our spouse is going to behave a certain way. We predict that we're going to behave a certain way. We're constantly predicting things. And memories themselves are a form of prediction. It sounds strange, but again, take the example of a car accident. And when you remember that car accident, you're predicting that you're in danger in the future. And as long as that memory is including that prediction of future danger based on past danger, you're going to respond to getting into a car with anxiety and nervousness. Until over time, as you rewrite the memory and it loses its emotional charge, then you can start predicting that, okay, well, pretty sure now I'm going to be safe. Any assertion of a direction generates an internal prediction. This means that when we set a goal, when we want to move in a certain direction in life, I want to become successful in young living. I want to make a certain amount of money every month. I want to go on a wonderful trip with my family. I want to feel confident speaking. You set a direction, your brain immediately, it's like it has odds makers. It's like Las Vegas in your brain, and immediately odds makers are in there determining, okay, how likely is this to happen? And if you've never succeeded in business before, the odds makers in your brain are saying, well, that's not going to happen. You've tried things before. You were in this before. Nothing worked. Nothing happened. And most predictions of the future are negative. And that's, again, part of how our brain protects us, by kind of stopping us from doing the stuff that's not likely to work. Just like, and that's good. Don't touch that hot stove. Don't walk across the street without looking. You know, don't go on a trip with no gas in your car, whatever it is. So a lot of what the brain does is say, no, 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 which is kind of a lot of what the parent has to do with the child. You know, don't go there, don't do this, don't do this. So our brains kind of take over as our inner parent, you could say. So we have these inner predictions that are negative, but that kind of blocks us, because our negative predictions dampen our confidence and our motivation to act. When you have these negative thoughts that are saying, you know, you'll never succeed at that, no one's going to listen to you, you're going to jumble your words. Well, that doesn't make you want to go do it, right? That makes you want to not do it. So that's why we tend to kind of draw inward and draw into this kind of inner blocked off area. So, and then third insight, and another great book, How Emotions Are Made, Secret Life of the Brain by Lisa Feldman Barrett. She's a neuroscientist. It's amazing how she writes, because she really has a deep understanding of the neuroscience, but she writes in a pretty accessible way. So I found it very interesting. And I had some major ahas as I was reading that book. And one of the other things that neuroscience has been talking about in the last few years is how the world we experience is really a simulation that our brain is recreating within our brain. And that when we see the wall or the tree or the sun out there, what we're actually seeing is our brain's best guess of what's actually out there, because the brain is just this little, you know, blob of matter stuck inside a black box. Can't see anything except for what the senses show it, and has to keep inferring things. So experience is a simulation constructed by the brain. What that means is how we view reality as a product of the interplay between sensory inputs, memories, and predictions. So again, when you see that car and you're wondering, you know, what am I going to experience here? Part of it is, well, the sensory input is showing you the car, showing you the red and the black and the whatever the colors are, but you're accessing all of your memories of what cars are, what they feel like, what they look like, what happens, and generating predictions. So it's this interplay between what's coming in through your senses and what's coming in through your memory. And to change the experience, we have to change the inputs. Again, the inputs are sensory input as well as our memory input. So Aroma Freedom changes the memories, which help predict the future. I'll say that again. Aroma Freedom changes the memories, which help predict the future. And essential oils, which we're using, change the body and mood state, which changed the experience. And we've all experienced this, even apart from Aroma Freedom. You didn't need Aroma Freedom to tell you that you could smell an essential oils and you could feel relaxed. What Aroma Freedom does is it takes that reality, that fact, and in a very specific way says, well, let's actually go further and change the memories that are predicting our future. This goes through twice for some reason. Okay. So here's how you can look at it. The key to Aroma Freedom starts by understanding how the brain organizes experience. And experience has these four components: the image, the feeling, the thought, and the body. So this is something that in the past I've called the memory complex. But it's more than that. It's not just a memory, and this was the insight that allowed all these other techniques to be realized. Okay, so the image could be any image. It could be a memory of the car accident. So you have the car accident, feeling of terror. The thought is, oh my God, I'm going to die. The bodily sensation is my heart's pounding. That could be a memory complex, we could say, right? But what if the image is not about a past memory, but about something that's happening right now? You know, you see your husband, you left the towel on the floor for the millionth time, okay? That's the image. What's the feeling? I feel angry. I feel, a thought, why can't he listen? I feel my fists clenching in rage, okay? So that's not past, that's present. That's happening right now, okay? That's still an experience. Well, what about the future? I'm worried about what the pandemic is going to do to the economy, what it's going to, if my loved ones are going to die, if I'm going to die. Well, that's not a memory, and that's not even something happening now necessarily. That could be a future image, or I'm worried if, how is the war going to affect everything? Or is the climate going to blow up? Or is my daughter going to drown when she jumps in that lake? So it could be an image of something in the future that's happening on a small scale of your family or large scale of the world, doesn't matter, that generates a feeling, a thought, and a body, okay? So from this understanding, I was able to derive several additional Aroma Freedom techniques based on the chosen starting point. So depending on where you start, you can have some different techniques that come in. So this is the chart many of you have seen that kind of displays the 6 techniques and how they relate. So I'll just explain this to you, then we're going to go through each one. So starting with the past, the memory resolution technique, this is where kind of the classic trauma or negative memory, you have a memory, and we say, I use the word haunted. It's kind of the key word to help people remember what these are. You're feeling haunted by this memory. She says, which oil will help me not want to strangle my boyfriend for leaving trash on the floor next to the trash can every single day? There you go. Yeah, we could, I'll give you examples for that. So if you know about the memory and you're haunted by it, could be a traumatic memory, or it could just be, a missed opportunity from the past. That's TMRT, because that's in the past, okay? Aroma Freedom, which you guys are familiar with, AFT, this is in the, it's basically between the present and the future. So you're here now, but you're wanting to move into the future. So Aroma Freedom is kind of like moving forward. TMRT stands for the memory resolution technique. Okay, the next one I created was Aroma Reset. The reset is in the present. It's basically, you look at the trash can and you see that your boyfriend put the trash on the floor instead of in the can. Okay, you do a reset on that. How do you feel when you see that? Well, I feel enraged. Where do you feel it in your body? Well, I feel my fists clenching. What's the negative thought? A negative thought is, why does he have to be like that? Okay, then breathe the oil. You're going to breathe the oil into that. In this case, not so much a memory because it just happened, but that situation, that ongoing situation, you breathe the oil into that experience, and then something starts to shift. And that's what's magical about all the techniques, but say in the reset, even though it didn't really change, it didn't magically pick up the trash and put it in a can and make him a good boy. It didn't do that. What it did do was it releases your emotional charge, and then you will have some peace, and then you can have an inspired idea of maybe what to say or how to say it, coming from a better place than rage, let's say, right? So that's the beauty of the reset, which we'll get into. Okay, the next one I created was the Aroma Boost. What you'll find after you do the reset is, okay, now you feel calm, you feel good. What's the positive action? Remember I said that to realize your dreams, you have to take action. What's the positive action that will move you in the direction you want to go? So the Aroma Boost basically is a reset and then moving a specifically formulated affirmation that moves you in that direction. Aroma Clear is, and it seems like I'm talking fast through all this, but we're going to go through each of them separately. So I'll repeat myself here. The Aroma Clear is sometimes when you do an aroma reset, it actually triggers memories. So let's say you're thinking about your boyfriend with the trash, you're breathing the oils, and suddenly you're reminded of a time when you were a kid and you got in trouble for something your brother did, or I'm just making something up. But all of a sudden you stumble into that and there's all this emotion and memory there. You may need to go back and clear that memory about your brother. Okay, so this does happen. Because it happens, we had to put that technique in here. And then the Aroma Wisdom, this is the example that I showed where you're totally in the future. There's no specific goal, but you're starting with this concern, this worry about, there's this bad thing that's going to happen. And I don't know if it's going to happen, but I'm afraid it's going to happen. It feels like it's going to happen. I'm feeling fear when I think about it. And there's negative thoughts. And so we breathe the oils into that. So these are the 6 techniques. And you can see better where they're based. So let's go through each of them. So remember, we already touched on Aroma Freedom technique. So the next one, which is also described in the original book, although not in detail, and it's evolved since then, but I used to call it the traumatic memory release technique. Then I shifted it to memory resolution because I feel like that's what it's really doing, is resolving these memories. Call it TMRT, you could also call it Aroma Past. So what we do with this is we're starting with the negatively charged memory. In this case, there's not a goal you're setting. You already know what the problem is. The problem is this memory, when you think about it, you feel terrible. You're starting with the memory, but we're going around that same circle. We're identifying the feelings, the thoughts, the bodily sensations, breathing the oils into the memory. And in this case, my number 1 oil for this is Trauma Life. I would say if there was only one oil you needed for Aroma Freedom, the very first would be Trauma Life. The second would be Inner Child. The third would be Release. Beyond that, you would start mixing oils like lavender, frankincense, stress away. That's what we've used for many years because it was in the starter kit, but of course we don't have starter kits so much anymore. So now I'm telling people more individually start with Trauma Life. So you're breathing the oils into the memory, you're noticing the shifts. And you just keep going back to that memory to process the additional layers of feeling. So for instance, you may be feeling angry for the first round, and then the second round you're feeling sad, and then for the third round you're feeling nervous. You keep clearing the memories, the feelings associated with the memory until when you think about it, there's really very little emotional charge. Once that charge is gone, then you can create your affirmations or goals or new questions. Someone's asking, what would you do if someone is triggered by stress away? In general, there's no need to fight people on this. So if somebody, let's say they don't like lavender or they're allergic to it, or if you hate it, just use a different oil for now. There's an old saying in Young Living that if you love an oil or you hate an oil, you probably need it. But for our purposes, we think it's fine just to shift to an oil that they do find pleasant. Over time, they may start to embrace an oil that they previously disliked. You can also start by just taking very, very, like a weak smell of it. So for instance, instead of putting it in your palms, you're just smelling the bottle cap. And you're smelling the bottle cap from a foot away from your nose, let's say, just a very slight whiff. You can also start to get someone used to oils by doing that too. But in general, people should be able to find an oil from the Young Living repertoire that they really love and just use that. So yes, I'm saying I would replace lavender, frankincense, and stress away with Trauma Life. Trauma Life by itself would replace all three of those, is what I'm saying. Inner Child also seems to do a great job on that. Okay, so the signs that you might need it. Let's say if you're aware of specific memory that has a negative emotional charge, you just jump right in and do TMRT. So this is a good example of using the chart of knowing which of the 6 techniques you can kind of shortcut and go right to where you need to go instead of going through the whole 12-step process. It might save you some time. Or maybe you feel a sense of incompleteness when thinking about a memory. So when you think about something from the past, you just have this sense of like, I'm just not quite settled with it. I give an example sometimes when I was in high school, I had my heart set on going to Stanford University. And I remember I got a letter from them. I was a really great student. I got a letter from them and they wanted to recruit me out there to this special math program. So I flew out there and interviewed them and toured the campus. I came back with a sweater, a Stanford sweater, and was so proud, and I was convinced I was going to get into Stanford, and I didn't get in. And I remember, of course, I was heartbroken, and I took that rejection letter and I just put it on my refrigerator, for whatever reason, just to remind me of it. And but obviously I got in somewhere else, ended up getting an education, getting my professional degree, having a good life. So it's not like it was a trauma in the way that, being assaulted might be a trauma. And I had done therapy over the years and I had cleared a lot of that. But when I came across, I was doing Aroma Freedom. And I remember I was thinking back about that memory of, and I could see that picture of the rejection letter on my refrigerator. And it gave me just this little emotional charge still. So I decided to do a TMRT on that. I just went back to that memory, identified this feeling of whatever it was of, loss or regret or something. And I had a most amazing process from that because it just cleared away that last little bit of resentment, which I was still trying to somehow in my mind prove to Stanford that they should have taken me. And that whole thing just went away and I was able to just really feel total peace about it. And so it was really transformative, even though it wasn't a terribly traumatic thing. So it doesn't have to be a traumatic memory for it to be an unresolved memory. So let's say if you avoid thinking about things from your childhood, if you're like, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to think about that, and whenever I see people and they say stuff like that, I can't think about that. I can't talk about that. I'm just like aching to give them a session because I know it doesn't have to be that way. We should be able to, and we can clear those things. Maybe avoid anything that might trigger you to think about the event. Here's some testimonials. Margie said, I can now think about the time my dad died without getting choked up and being right back at that moment. I was 11 years old. I still can't believe that all the emotional charge is gone after carrying it for 30 years. And that's the thing. It doesn't matter how many years, how many decades it's been. You could see what she was saying. She was right back at that moment normally when she would think about it. That's how traumatic memories are. They feel present and they feel just as intense as when we were there. She goes through this process and she clears it out. Annalise said, It has helped me tremendously with dealing with my PTSD. I had EMDR before, which is a specific therapy that uses eye movements, but that did not solve nearly as much as AFT did. Now I can leave all the negative feelings and emotions attached to the events that caused my PTSD behind me and live. I didn't catch the rest of it, but this was a screenshot, but you get the idea. Jenny says, AFT has helped me process and release old hurts and beliefs that I've been carrying around since childhood. It's become my go-to tool for dealing with worry and anxiousness. AFT leaves me with a feeling of peace, lightness, and a new insight into what was troubling me. See, there's a couple of questions coming through. Jennifer says, once you rewrite the memory, is it gone, changed forever, or do you have to keep doing it? My experience, most people's experience, is once you rewrite it, it has forever changed. Sometimes the memory truly vanishes, which I know it seems hard to believe, maybe even troubling, but when you truly process a memory and there's really no more emotional charge, there's no need for your brain to hang on to it. Because think about it. Why do we remember things in the first place? We usually remember the things that are important to us, either important good, like remembering our birth of our child, or remember bad, the death of our child, whatever it is. Like we remember stuff because there's an emotional component. When you've cleared that emotional component out, there's little need for your brain to even have that memory anymore. Sometimes it goes away. Sometimes it just dissolves and becomes kind of like, I can barely see it, or I still remember it, but who cares? I'm doing other things now. It just tends to fade away like that. And another question here. Right, an incomplete memory, right, yep. Would TMRT be a good place to begin to help someone who worked as an ER tech and has many memories and even sounds that can trigger him? Yes, if there are specific memories that he knows about are triggering, yeah, just go right into TMRT. And as we go through further, we'll get into Aroma Clear. You'll see some other ways of getting into that also. Okay. And AFT works with kids even better than with adults. It works even faster. You'd be amazed how quickly kids will shift. You just have to modify your language a little bit. But once you get them to the right place, it's almost instant to see them shift. Anita said, I didn't know, it's a testimonial, I didn't know it was possible to find self-forgiveness for a poor decision made many years ago. The clarity I got through the process opened up my reasoning in a different way for better understanding of the events that led to the decision. So that's a good example of guilt and self-forgiveness. A poor decision, it's not like someone, I don't know what it was, but it's not so much like someone assaulted her. It's like she did something that she later regretted. So you can get over that stuff as well. Okay, so that's TMRT. The next one is the reset we're going to talk about, which is the present moment. The Aroma Reset, and I have a little booklet that a handout that you can get. It's the quickest and simplest of all the aroma freedom techniques. It only takes a few minutes to do. Once you know what you're doing, you can do it in a minute. The first few times might take a couple minutes. It's very easy to do on yourself or others. We call it small but mighty. Even though it's a small technique, people are just blown away with how powerful it is. And what it's going to do is either going to quickly resolve the current situation or identify the larger issue to work on. So let's say, for example, with the boyfriend who leaves trash on the floor. It's either going to give you some aha of how to resolve it, and you just feel peace about it, get on with your day, that sort of thing. Or it may trigger a larger thing. Like you may realize there's a whole thing with your brother that you have to clear out. Or you may realize there's this key issue in your relationship that you need to, find better ways to communicate or resolve some unresolved hurts that creates this power struggle about the trash. So it's either going to clear it or it's going to show you where you need to go to move further. If that makes sense. So at the moment, this Aroma Reset booklet, I'm only shipping it within the US right now. I'm going to work on a solution for international though, maybe some way to access something online. Can this technique be used along with EFT, meaning emotional freedom technique, or is it better to separate the two techniques? It's better to separate them. The techniques I'm showing you are complete in themselves. You can use them, at a different time than the other techniques, but there's no need to mix another technique in. Also, Aroma Reset is perfect for an introduction to essential oils. You want to show people the power of oils. You want to show people a quick tool that they can use to shift their emotional state. Show them the reset. Either if you're doing a class, and we'll talk more about this too. I'm going to give you some more training on this, an opportunity a little bit later. So you can use it to introduce people. Just let's say someone in the grocery store is having a bad day, you could take them through a session right there, or at an expo booth, or of course with your kids. And I encourage you to do it all with your family, your friends. You don't need to understand AFT. I think that's what you mean. First, be going to the reset. Now, the reset stands on its own. You can use it as a prospecting tool as well, as I mentioned. It's just like the TMRT, but it starts with the current situation rather than the past memory, which we talked about. So when do you know you want to do an aroma reset? The main keyword here is overwhelm. When you think about a current situation, you feel overwhelmed, do a reset. It means that your brain is having a hard time processing, how to approach this thing. But you could also be frustrated or nervous or agitated when thinking about it. So picturing the boyfriend with the trash, you're feeling all kinds of things, do a reset. The first thing that you do with the reset is you're naming the feeling, and that helps to really solidify getting past it. Or maybe you're avoiding getting started on a project. Do a reset on that project, thinking about the project. Maybe you're in a bad mood, maybe something just happened. And the neighbor's cat just ruined your screen door or something, and you're just in a bad mood. Do a reset to clear that out so that you can keep moving. I remember one time, good example of this is my wife and I were in the bedroom, and our cat was getting ready to cough up a fur ball on the bedspread, and I didn't want that to happen. So I very kind of quickly reached and grabbed the cat and moved her to the ground. I thought I was doing a good thing by saving our bedspread, but 15 minutes later, I noticed that my wife was really agitated. She just was really short-tempered, and she was like almost in tears. And I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "Well, when you were reaching for the cat, I thought you were going to hurt the cat." And she reacted emotionally to it, and she was stuck there. Like, she kept thinking about it, even though the cat was fine and the bedspread was fine. But I realized, well, we need to do a reset in this. So I had her picture that, and the image that she brought up was the image of me suddenly reaching for the cat. And that's the moment that was steered in her brain. So, and she identified her feeling of fear and where it was in her body and the negative thought. She breathed the oil in, and in about a minute, it just released, because her system was able to recognize at this point, there's no current danger. The cat's fine. Her husband's not a cat abuser. The bedspread's fine. Like, everything's okay. And so her system could reset. And that's really the goal here, is we want to be able to get over these daily upsets so that we can just get back into life. Because imagine what would have happened if we didn't do that. It could have ruined our whole day. Let's imagine that she, was still wound up about that. Maybe she and I would have gotten into a fight about something stupid, not because of that thing, but because of, this unresolved feeling like something bad was happening. This is so often why there are problems in relationships. People are not clearing out their stuff. And so then they're reacting to each other, not based on what's really happening. So that's why it's so important to do these resets and to really internalize this. And that's why I teach this first now in the certification course. We go through a week of daily resets to clear this stuff out. Or you just feel off balance or disoriented, do a reset just to kind of get centered again. Or you're having trouble letting go of something and embracing what is new. Shifting from, I don't know, let's say you realize that, you had your heart set that the family was going to go to a movie that day, and then something happens and you realize you can't, and you're just in a bad mood from it. You got to shift gears. So you let go of that, then you can embrace the next thing. These testimonials I pulled from my database of my certified practitioners. I have people in the certification. We start out doing resets every day for a week, and then I just have them write a reflection on, hey, what was that like doing the reset every week? And this is just some screenshots that I captured from that. One person says, I'm becoming more aware of smaller energy disturbances and negative thought patterns. Resets are beginning to flow. I love having this quick, simple tool to clear out the negative energies before they snowball. So that's an example of when you do the process every day, you start to internalize it, where you don't need to look at the book anymore. You know all the steps, you've internalized it. Next person said, feeling more excited, calm, and confident with my life. Another person says, I love that it's so quick and allows a nice reset. It allows the day to turn around positively. Feels good not to have stinking thinking linger. The aroma is so good. Another person says, I love doing Aroma Reset each day. It really made it more possible to do all the things I need to do and not get stuck or overwhelmed. I feel much freer. So as I was saying, just to navigate through the day, there's so many places we can get stuck. When there's a project, let's say you're going along and then your computer doesn't work the way it's supposed to, and it just kind of kills everything. Versus you do the reset, you regroup, and you move forward. That's the reset. The next one is the Aroma Boost. So one of the things I realized is after we clear out the negative charge about a current situation, where do we want to go? Well, the next thing we want to do is we want to move forward. So we want to move into the future. So I created the Aroma Boost to help us move into the future. So Aroma Boost builds on and extends the Aroma Reset technique. So it's basically, it starts with the reset, and then we use a specially formulated affirmation that projects us into the future. And by anticipating the future positive state, it energizes us into action. So in other words, I'm having you, once you've cleared the emotional charge about it, you say, well, what's the next step of what you need to do? Okay, how you're going to feel? What's the positive feeling you're going to have when you picture that? And where are you going to feel that in your body? Okay, so let's create an affirmation. I feel joy in my heart as I finish organizing the garage, or I feel proud in my chest as I speak to that group of 100 people, whatever it is. So and then we energize that with an essential oil as well. So also a simple technique. We say it takes 5 to 10 minutes, instead of 1 to 5, so just a little bit longer, but still very quick. So times when you might need the Aroma Boost, you feel paralyzed or procrastinating about something you need to do. You need an extra boost of motivation. That's why we call it the Aroma Boost, because it really, it seems to give us this, it's like feeling supercharged moving towards your action steps. Maybe you're engaged in a long-term project. You need to be able to get in the zone to stay focused and do the work. So it's like, you need to do some stuff. You're having trouble getting focused and you're distracted. You do the boost and it activates the motivation centers in the brain, because we're basically, what motivates us? Well, emotion is what motivates us. So once we clear the negative emotion, then we generate positive emotion through these specific steps. Or a reset might just turn into a boost. Many resets do turn into boosts automatically. You just finish the reset, you want to get into action, you turn it into a boost. So boost has become, some people, it's become their all-time favorite technique, because it's so quick and people feel so good and they just get moving into action. So we also do a week of boosts in the certification. And again, I just pulled some stuff out from the what the student said. One person said, can I just say, wow, it was amazing to have a tool to help me quickly resolve any frustrations that came up through the week, and also be able to serve others this way. I'm absolutely loving doing these sessions. So I have people doing the resets, the boosts, not just on themselves, but also on other people every day. Another person said, life is flowing smoothly. I'm able to be non-reactive more. Another person said, it feels good to clear out old emotions and memories. Life isn't as tearful as it's been lately. There's a feeling of being grounded. So that's just from doing this simple technique, 15-minute technique, once a day for 7 days, people are saying all these things. So this is why we know how powerful it is. And this one, I love doing the Aroma Boost. They help me get out of a funk quickly, and I feel energized to move productively through the rest of my day. Such a great tool. Some more testimonials just on Aroma Freedom in general. Aroma Freedom helped me have clarity about my job choices and what brings me joy. Okay, so we've covered most of these, just a couple more to go here. You guys doing all right? You finding this helpful to you? Aroma Wisdom, let's talk about that. So Aroma Wisdom, remember, this is future oriented. Okay, there's no going into the past with this. You're purely in this imagined future that is really a terrible imagined future. If the imagined future is wonderful, you don't need the technique. You just go into that future with excitement. So, but if what you're imagining is you're walking into a nightmare, we use the words worry and dread for our keywords here, then you do Aroma Wisdom. So it's like a reset, but on the future, like I said, the future that you're imagining. It quickly releases the emotional charge of this worrisome image of the future. And the way I created this technique was actually, it was in the early weeks of the pandemic. So we're talking March or April of 2020. And I, as everything was first starting up and, lockdowns were starting and everything, I was watching a YouTube video of someone who was describing all these things that he, was seeing was going to happen, that, it was going to turn into a totalitarian state, and it was going to be like the Hunger Games, and, all these negative things that were going to be happening in our world. And the next day I woke up and I was depressed. And I don't normally get depressed. I'm obviously usually a pretty upbeat person, and I have all these tools to keep myself upbeat. So when I get depressed, I take notice. I'm like, what's going on here? And I realized what happened was I was carrying those images that he was describing of this dystopian future that we were walking into. I was carrying those around in my head and was reacting emotionally to them. Like, well, who wouldn't be depressed if we're living in the Hunger Games or whatever it is? So I basically at that moment realized, well, that's just an image. So I can use that image as the starting point for a reset and clear it out. And sure enough, I identified the feeling and the body and the thought, did a couple rounds of smelling the oils. And sure enough, what happened was the image it lost its charge. Like, yes, I could still imagine it, but I no longer felt down about it. And I also knew it still might happen, but my energy is not going to be dragged down by it. I'm going to still be creative. I'm going to still be, positive energy moving through me. And I realized that's what we all need to do. And, you could say now more than ever, we need to tap into that resource, that ability to keep positive energy flowing no matter what is happening in the world around us. So at that time, and actually for over a year, it was called the Doomsday technique, because that's what it felt like, the Doomsday scenario, and clearing that out. But people kept asking me, well, gosh, can't you come up with a positive name for it? Because all the other techniques are based on the positive things that happen, like reset and boost and freedom. Why Doomsday? And I didn't have the right one. And then it was several months ago, actually talking with some of my certification students, and we were talking about what happens when we do that technique. And what always seems to happen is that once the negative charge for that future scenario disappears, there's kind of this wisdom that comes in, and you have this wise words that tell you, stay the course, everything's going to be okay, or everything's going to work out, or maybe specific wisdom, yeah, you need to do this action now. Based on that worry, you need to do this action. And so we realized that wisdom is what comes in when you're contemplating this uncertain future, because let's face it, the future is uncertain. It always has been uncertain, and it always will be uncertain. That's a fact of life that's never going to change. So the question is not how can we control the future, but how can we respond to the uncertainty of the future? And I'll give you a good example of this. one of my students was saying how she was doing this. I was taking them through the process, and she was working on her worrisome image was that her son was going to drown in the pool. And she kept just being so wound up about that. Like he was maybe, let's say, 6 years old or something. And she just like was so wound up and worried that he was going to drown. And so she used that image of him drowning in the pool, that terrible image, and as she went through the process and she cleared the emotion about it, she got this idea, oh, I'm going to sign him up for swimming lessons. It seems simple, right? But as soon as she realized that she could sign him up for swimming lessons, like that was the wisdom that came in that replaced worry. She felt so much more peace because she realized, okay, well, there is something specific I can do that is going to greatly increase the chances that he's not going to drown, right? So that's wisdom. So that's whether you're thinking of the world or your own life, shifting that around. So, and that's what that is, returns us to the present moment instead of being stuck in this uncertain future, and allows us to be open to our inner wisdom and discernment, like she was. In this case, like I said, the image is not a memory or a current situation, but an imagined future. So the signs you might need it: you feel fear, worry, or anxiety about the future. You're pessimistic about the direction your life or the world is going. If you find yourself being pessimistic, first question to ask is, well, what are you imagining is going to happen? Or what's the worst case scenario? That's a good way of starting a clearing, actually. I'm going to speak in front of 1,000 people. What's the worst thing that could happen? What's the worst case scenario? Okay, do a clearing based on that image until that resolves. You fear an apocalypse or world destruction. You worry about yourself or your loved ones who are in uncertain situations. So this is an example also of, it's a quick technique that you can just be having a conversation with someone and they're starting to talk about, they're worried about this, they're worried about that, they're worried about the economy, they're worried about the dollar. Okay, let's do a quick process, So when you think about the dollar collapsing, what are you imagining? Oh, I'm imagining people at the food lines. Okay, what's the feeling? What's the body? Okay, breathe the oils into that image, and some wisdom comes in. Either, don't worry about it, or, okay, here's a positive action I'm motivated to take right now. In either case, you've moved from that paralysis into action. Another testimonial, Jennifer says, I feel in control of my emotions. I'm not scared anymore that I will be overpowered by them. Another one, Min Melgar says, I now have the courage to face the deeply distressing emotions that paralyzed me and were being held so deeply within my body, mind, and soul that they created disease. I now have a beautiful healing tool that is used regularly to shift and remove these emotions, not just for myself, but a gift that can also heal many others. Bridget's asking, do you use the same oils for these? Yeah, that's the amazing thing. You use the same oils for all of these techniques because it's all the same process. The process is finding the image, naming the feeling, the body, and the thought that goes with it, and breathing the oils into it. So now as you go through, you're starting with those basic oils. For those of you who are really familiar with oils and you have a whole bunch of them in front of you, like many of you probably do, in the middle of a session, you might feel intuitively guided to grab present time oil or to grab forgiveness oil, and that's fine. Does this work with groups? Absolutely. That's one of the things that surprised me when I first created the technique. I didn't intend it or expect it to work with groups. I didn't plan on that. I'm an individual psychotherapist, so I, was always imagining just doing it individually. But when the book first came out, actually a platinum leader hired me to do a Zoom class for like 12 of her leaders. So everyone got on the Zoom. I took everyone through the process and they all had these amazing breakthroughs and they wanted to be certified. So I said, okay, well, I guess it works in groups. So since then, I've actually let go of my private practice because I found I've been able to help more people this way than doing it one-on-one. So yes, it works very well in groups. Now, that being said, there are some people who may need individual sessions still, and that's totally fine. After, out of a group of, let's say 100 people, most of the people are going to have a wonderful experience, but maybe there's 5 or 10 that they just can't get into it because they don't feel comfortable processing in the group, or they really need individual attention. Okay, final technique here, Aroma Clear technique. The Aroma Clear is one that I created mostly because I realized the logic of it. If there was a future version of the reset, there has to be a past version. So the Aroma Clear is what we do. We start with a reset, and then we shift into the past. So I'll explain how that works. So you're starting with your reset. So let's say you're starting with, like I said, the boyfriend just spilled garbage again, or left it near the garbage can instead of in the garbage can. But then instead of just breathing into that, we say, okay, you have the feeling, the body, the thought. Now drift back to an earlier time when you felt the same way. And this is where the memory of the brother might come up, or the memory of the school or something else. And then you process, you're not processing the current situation anymore, you're processing the past memory, just like you would with TMRT. And so basically, we put this in also because sometimes this happens spontaneously. When you're doing a reset, you might stumble into past stuff. So the Aroma Clear is just being intentional about that, going in and resolving it using the same tools that we use with TMRT. Jennifer says, what if you've had the oils for a while and they've been opened for a few years? Are they still effective? I hear if they're open, they lose their effectiveness. Not so much. My general understanding of this is, I mean, oils themselves can last for thousands of years, just like they found oils in King Tut's tomb that were still viable. I will say, I mean, if the bottle of oil has been opened and stayed open for years, the lighter compounds could have evaporated, and so you may have just some more of the heavier compounds in. But generally, my sense of it is that if you can still smell it and there's still a smell to it, then it's still going to work for our purposes. So you end with, and then once you do the clear, you end with an affirmation, or maybe you've cleared something, now you want to go into a full AFT session. And you could, at any point in a session, it's also a tool, although it's so simple, I kind of call this an advanced technique, because you need to be comfortable tackling those traumatic early memories if they are there. So I kind of teach this as kind of like the last one I teach in certification, but it's one that can also be a very quick way of accessing deep things. So you might need it if you're highly emotionally reactive. This is what I was saying about situations where you're flying off the handle about something you shouldn't be flying off the handle about. So you're emotionally freaking out because your toddler spilled his milk, okay? And toddler spilling milk shouldn't equal freaking out. But if it's something that has happened 1,000 times and you still have, unresolved memories of having to clean things or whatever 1,000 times, you're carrying all that emotion into the current situation. You're responding intensely to what should be a normal stressor, or if you're doing Aroma Reset, and although it's taken out some of the charge, you're realizing there's a deeper charge, then we might want to go deeper into the clear. Or maybe you've stumbled into an upsetting memory and you need to process it. Okay, a couple more testimonials, then we'll wind up for today. Erica said, just one, everything used to trigger me into a rage or extreme irritation. Now it rolls off my shoulders. My whole life has changed. I'm forever thankful for the gift you gave me. Didn't know I could ever be, quote, normal. So notice how she says that my whole life has changed. So this is what happens when we have true transformation. It's not like, oh, now I'm the same me, but I'm has less of this problem. Like I actually feel like a different person. And a lot of people say that too, that, I feel like a different person. Kim writes about forgiveness. She said, I'd been stuck for a decade with the lingering hurt and the anger of a family member's betrayal. AFT supported me in identifying where in my body I was holding on to the feelings and allowed me to release and heal my heart and gut spaces. I feel lighter, as if a tremendous weight has been lifted both physically and emotionally. I'm grateful for AFT supporting me forgiving my family member. So here's a quick chart that compares the 6 techniques. So we have AFT, when you're feeling stuck, there is a goal, you're clearing a memory. It's not the quick technique, but it's powerful. The TMRT is when you're haunted. Remember, that's the memory. You do not start with a goal, it clears the memory. It's not the quick technique, and it's powerful. The Aroma Reset is when you're feeling overwhelmed. You don't need a goal, there's no memory, it's very quick. Aroma Boost, you're procrastinating, there's no goal, no memory, and it's quick. Aroma Wisdom, no goal, no memory, and quick. Aroma Clear is when you're feeling triggered, there's no goal, but you do go back and clear a memory. And is it quick? Well, that depends. It kind of depends on what memory you bring up in it. So that's why I'm gonna say that's an advanced technique, because although it's quick to get into the memory, if it's a deep memory, it may take several rounds to process. So the journey back to freedom is really what this is all about. Thanks for sticking with me. I know this was a longer training than I usually do. There's a lot to go over, but there's a lot we've learned over the past several years. So I did create an opportunity for you guys to go deeper on this. What we're going to do, you guys, is a 7-day Aroma Reset challenge. Okay, here's how it's going to work. It's going to start in a few days, actually. It's going to go from Sunday to Saturday, and we'll set up a private Facebook group for it. I'm going to do 2 lives every day, 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., which means whatever time zone you're in, well, not time zone, but say if you're on the East Coast of the US, 8 a.m. is 8 p.m. in Hong Kong. 8 p.m. is 8 a.m. there. So whichever time works for you. I'm expecting many of you might want the evening session for the first kickoff on Sunday, but then maybe the morning session for the daily lives. So the Zoom call kickoff is going to really get you all set for your resets, so you really know how to do it, and you're trained to do that. And then the Facebook Lives, they're just going to be maybe 15 minutes. So it's not going to take up your whole day. We're just going to hop in. I'm going to do a reset with you guys every day to just get you on track for your day. And you'll have a chance to post in the Facebook group and support each other as you go. And you guys will get a chance to experience what the practitioners experience when they go through the reset every day and how transformative that is. And then the last call is going to be a Zoom call where we're going to recap everything and kind of talk about what's next. And we will get into, on that recap call, how you might use this in your business, because those of you who are Young Living business builders, this is a tool that you'll be able to then take to your people and do it with your leaders, do it with your prospects, that sort of thing. So you can register just at aromafreedom.com/reset, and I'll just type that in here. You can do that. And I do have as an option these 25 packs of reset booklets. Unfortunately, just the way shipping is these days, I'm only shipping it within the US. So if you're not in the US, don't select that. But as I said, I'm going to find a way to get this to you guys overseas. It'll probably be more like a page on the website that you can send people to where they can get all the same information, that sort of thing. And everything's going to be recorded. You're going to be in kind of like the little course area, so you can watch the replays anytime you want to do that. So go ahead and grab that if you want to. Also, practitioner certification. We've been certifying people now for going on 6 years. And the basic idea here is once you start getting free, you look around and it looks like everyone else is in jail. And everyone else is complaining about their bad memories or complaining how they're stuck. And you're like, well, I want to help you. So we do have the certification for that. So the certification is a professional level certification, really designed for people that want to start a new practice or enhance their existing practice. You can do it with individuals or groups. So it's extensive. And the certification program is about 8 to 12 weeks long. It's quite a bit more expensive. That's around $2,700, but that's going to get you set up to be able to really help people in a professional way. I am coming out with a series. This is the first in a series of trainings designed more for young living business builders that maybe you don't want to go out and start your own business as a practitioner, but you want to really become masterful at this and use it to help others. So the distinction that I draw is that if you want to charge money for Aroma Freedom services, then you need to become a practitioner. If you don't want to charge money for it, you want to just use it on family, friends, maybe you can use it in your young living business, in which case maybe you'll do an Aroma Reset challenge for your team, but it'll be free. You could do that under these guidelines, but you couldn't charge for it if you're not a practitioner, if that makes sense. For those of you who got certified several years ago and are saying there's all this new stuff here now, then reach out to me, and I do offer some opportunities for retaking at a discount. So reach out to me. We're still looking at how we're structuring that right now. So yeah, the Aroma Freedom certification, it's a massive amount of personal growth. As you saw, just in the first week or two, people were doing it. We're having all these trainings, and the trainings are all on Zoom. Yes, so you can do it from anywhere in the world. We have people all over the world who've done it. It says 8-week intensive. It's really more like 8 to 12. We have a live version, which if there's enough people who want to do it, live one, it was actually going to be starting in April. So, but a lot of people also choose to just do the pre-recorded one, because that way they can do it in their own pace, faster or slower, or take breaks. So there's options. You'll see on the website, on the aromafreedom.com website, you'll see options. Explains all about certification more. You're going to master all the techniques, and there's a little subtleties, as you can imagine, shifting between the different techniques. So once you register for this 7-day reset challenge, you're going to be getting some emails over the next couple of days of how to join the Facebook group and everything like that. So don't worry about that. Right now, I just wanted to make sure that all of you guys had the training. I'm doing another class actually 12 hours from now, 8 o'clock tonight, my time, for people on the other side of the globe. So if you want to watch this again or send somebody, go ahead, and if you have a message for me, go ahead and open up a ticket, go to aromafreedom.com and click the little button that says need help, and this lets you open a ticket, because emails get lost with me sometimes. So go ahead and send me a message that way, would be great. So, okay, you guys, wonderful to work with all of you. Sorry you couldn't see me, but it's more important that you saw this stuff. Go ahead and just give me one word that describes how you feel right now, and if you found this valuable or not. The new book, I don't know if it's going to be before or after convention. Right now I'm working on these different training programs to help people. So I don't know if the book, originally I thought the new book I could do before convention, but it might be afterwards. So in either case, we're going to get that information out to you guys. So, okay, great to work with all of you, and I hope to see a bunch of you in the challenge. Okay, bye-bye.